Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Bree from With Love Bree, and today I am going to be making a paper bow. So for those of you that have seen my cookie box tutorial and process video, it's more of a process video, but I created, I believe I decorated this box here. I put this box together, I decorated it, and then I also let you guys know that I'm going to be making this bow. This bow was one of my prototypes out of two. I messed up on both, but I actually didn't really mess up. It was more so just trial and error. So as you guys can see here, there's like multiple layers. I used about like 16 pieces here. You're gonna only need about half the amount, maybe a couple pieces more to create it. So it's not gonna be as like thick in the middle here. And it also saves you some time. Again, like I said, it just took a couple of tries to get it down. But I think it was Andrea Alvarez, I think, where she made a box and she had one of these bows. I went on the Silhouette Studio store and I saw this bow, but thought that not everyone has a Silhouette Cameo. So I thought I'd go ahead and make my own measurements to make the perfect size to decorate these with. And then not only that, it's like perfect for Happy Mail. So we'll go ahead and get started. This one here doesn't have patterned paper on top, but here's like a vellum bow, and this one does have patterned paper. So you can see the differences here. If you just use patterned paper, if you use two separate ones. And then the thickness is not too different, but I mean, you could see how much messier this one is compared to this one here. It's a lot more clean. It's a lot cleaner. It just uses one piece for like, for each little part here. I was using separate pieces for each one, but no, not for this. So we'll go ahead and just get started. I really love these bows because, oops, I really love these bows because it actually uses up your scraps. So on my desk, I always have like this basket of scraps if I'm working with a collection, and I'll literally keep the smallest that I can use. And then when I'm done using this, I'll throw away the smaller pieces and keep pieces like these in my stash. So we'll be using some of the Flourish collection. That's what I'm working on now. And again, like I said, I'm using scraps, so I just pulled all of the same scraps that I have. This was for making the box, so that's why they're cut like this. But I'm going to be using these today for the bow, and then just this hot pink Recollections paper from Michaels. Alright, so we'll do the cuts on camera too, and then I'll have the measurements on the screen as well. Alright you guys, so on top of the patterned paper and the cardstock that you'll be using today, you'll also be needing a couple of other tools. So you will be needing a paper trimmer, just some scissors. I'm using these fine tip ones. You can also just use regular scissors, but we're going to be making some flagged pieces for the bottom of the bow, and so you definitely want something that'll make that happen. As you guys can see here. So you just kind of want it to be pointy. You'll also need a bone folder or a scoring tool, anything that'll like curl up your edges. This is a tool that I got from Tuesday Morning that you can use to, it actually is to curl and also to score. So I have that tool. I'm also going to be using this, but not what it's actually meant to be used for. So you'll see what I do with that. But you can use a paintbrush. So I wonder if I need anything else before I start. Oh, and you can use your choice of glue. I feel like liquid glue is probably your best way to go. I use hot glue, but again, if you're not comfortable using it, then I highly don't recommend using it just because you can get burned. Alright, so what we're going to start by doing is cut our cardstock. So you want to start with that piece. We'll save the pattern papers for our second cut. If you want to just use one sheet of paper and not have to layer it, you definitely can skip that step. So all you have to worry about is just these measurements here. This paper is not too thick, but I think that the flimsier the paper, the better. So we're going to get all the cutting done first. So for the top bow, and what I mean by that is the top layer here, that's not including the center, we're going to start with those measurements first. So what you're going to do is you're going to cut 2 pieces at 1/2 inch by 3 5/8. So and for those of you that are wondering where the 3 5/8 inch mark is, it's going to be that line after the 1/2 inch. There's a small line and a medium size line, and it's going to be, this is 3 1/2, it's that medium line right there. So we'll need 2 of those. Sorry, I wanted to let the ambulance and the firefighter pass by, the fire truck pass by. So now we're going to work on the bottom bow. For that one, you're going to need 2 pieces that measure 1/2 inch by 3 7/8 of an inch. And that line is the medium like sized mark right before the 4 and right after the 3 3/4. So again, I'll show you where it's at. And then I could probably zoom in actually. So here's the 3/4 inch mark, here's the 4, you're gonna go right in the middle to that medium line. And we're gonna cut 2 of those out. All right, so we got those 2 now. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and work on the tails. So the tails, you'll need 2 pieces as well. That's going to measure 5/8 of an inch. Again, 5/8 of an inch is right after that 1/2 mark. And I'm using the right side of my trimmer just because it's easier. And this is going to look a lot thicker, but it's okay. By 2 3/4. So again, you'll need 2 of those. And those are the tails. And then for the center, you're going to need 1/2 inch by 1 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to cut this down to 1 3/8. And 1 3/8 of an inch is right before the 1/2 inch mark. That small, or that medium line, that's right before the 1/2 inch. This is the center. So if you're going to just use cardstock or just patterned paper for the bow and not do the layering, this is all you'll need. But for those of you that do want to do the layers, we're going to go ahead and work on the layers next. So we're going to grab our patterned papers, whatever you choose to use, and I am going to cut for the top bow a 3/8 of an inch piece by 3 1/2 inches. So I think we can actually use this end. Okay, so that's for the top bow. For the bottom bow, you'll need a 3/8 of an inch by 3 3/4 inch piece. So you'll need 2 of those. And then for the tails, you're going to need 2 1/2 inch by 2 1/2 inch pieces. Alright, and then for the centerpiece, you're going to need a 3/8 of an inch by 1 1/4 inch piece, and you just need 1 of those. And this gets a lot easier if you're you become familiar with your measurements and where it is on the paper trimmer. So try to familiarize with the measurements. Again, I didn't want to make this too complicated, but this is the perfect size. Okay. All right, so we got rid of one sheet of paper, used a little bit of this one, so still using up the scraps. All right, so we're gonna bring in our pieces here. I'm gonna stay zoomed in. So what we're going to do is we're gonna start adhering. So you wanna set the tails aside because that's a whole separate step. So you wanna separate those pieces. And again, the tails are gonna be your shorter but chunkier pieces. They are the 5/8 by 2 3/4 inch pieces. That's the cardstock size. So set those aside. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and start adhering all these pieces down to the pattern papers before we actually do anything else. So again, this is going to get a lot easier now to put together. So you are going to need, again, any adhesive that you'd like. Liquid glue is probably the best. I'm going to use double-sided tape just to adhere the pattern papers down to the cardstock, just because I'm okay with it. But for security purposes, I mean, I think that the liquid glue is probably your best bet. And just remember that you do have 2 different sizes of papers. So your longer pieces and your shorter pieces. Oh, I might have cut that one a little too short. So yeah, just make sure you're looking at your measurements. This is the top bow, so it should be 3 5/8. Let me see. Yeah, just make sure that you do pay attention to your measurements. But again, we all make mistakes, so don't feel bad. There you go. All right, so let's slide these over. We're gonna go ahead and adhere this. I'll probably just fast forward this part just because you really don't need to see it. Making mistakes on top of mistakes. So again, like I said, just make sure that you're paying attention to your... Okay, sorry about that. So yeah, just again, make sure that you're just adhering them to the right pieces. Sorry about that, because I think the mailman came, and so Maui was in here with me, and now he's barking. So that it'll go there. And to make it easier for you, if you guys want, just organize your pieces, put them all where they belong. So first kind of see where each piece belongs and kind of keep them together in its own pile so that you don't make a mistake. Luckily I'm using just this double-sided adhesive, so kind of just came off. So now that we have those adhered, we're going to go ahead and work on the tails. I like to get everything adhered and done before I put the actual bow together. So we're going to go ahead and just grab these, set these aside, and you're going to bring your tail pieces together. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to use our fine tip scissors, and you're going to start with your pattern paper piece first. If you're not going to be using pattern paper, then you're going to do this with your cardstock piece, and then you don't have to worry about it anymore. So with this piece here, if you want to measure it, you can measure the center of this piece here, because we're going to be making a fishtail. So if you want to be perfect and find the center, you can use a centering ruler to find the center. And then what you're going to do is you can go up to 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch for your flag shape. I wouldn't suggest going any higher because it just would be a little too high. I'm going to just eyeball it because I feel comfortable doing it, but I totally understand if you want all your pieces to match. But it is handmade, so I feel like, you know, sometimes having imperfections is always the best. So yeah, so that's how that looks. Sorry if that went out of focus. We're gonna do the same thing, just cut up to about 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch to go from this corner. I don't know why it keeps going out of focus. I'm so sorry. You're gonna go from this corner all the way up to that center line where you stopped. And same thing here. All right. And you're gonna do that with both pieces here. Okay, and if you're working with the cardstock piece, you don't have to worry about measuring. If you're using measurements on making it perfect, you don't have to worry about measuring anything because you're gonna use this as a template. So you really don't need to worry about it. Okay, so then the next thing that we're gonna do with our pattern paper or your cardstock, you're going to find the center of this piece now. This whole side. Again, I'm gonna eyeball it. But what you're going to do is you're going to go in at an angle to that center piece because we kind of want it to go from a wide, like from this, the bottom part is going to be the widest part of your bow, and it's going to get more narrow at the tops or in the middle. So I'll show you. So you're just going to go a little bit towards the center. You see that little piece there? And then you're going to go outwards. And I usually start right at the corner. As you guys can see, it literally didn't even chop any of that corner off because you kind of want that edge. You see that? It's kind of like a V shape. And then we're going to do the same thing here. Again, using that corner as your starting point and then also the other end as your end point. So here are the two pieces here. You could see the difference here. If you want to cut more towards the center to make it a lot more narrow, you can, but it's up to you. And I'm only doing that just to give it that look of like it looking like thinner in the middle. So you could see it's like getting a little bit more thin, like getting thinner into the middle part, but that's really up to you. You really can skip this step. It's just up to you and how you feel like you want your bow to look. And then you can keep cutting if you just feel like it needs to be cut more until you find what you would like. Okay, so now what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and take your cardstock piece, and I'm going to say this again, this is if you're doing the layering piece, and you're going to now adhere this to the center just like this. So now what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and use this pattern paper as your template. So now you see why I didn't cut the banner shape on the cardstock, is because we can just easily use this as a template and you don't have to worry about stressing it out. So I purposely made the measurements this long so that way when you do cut the ends, you have enough space to make it like a perfect banner shape, because I noticed when I had it a little bit shorter, the ends were like kind of rounded and not cute because I didn't give myself enough space. So just gonna do that. All right, so now we have both of those done. And that's not the last part for the tails. Again, remember we did cut at an angle here. So you're just gonna kind of eyeball and kind of cut exactly, like follow again like a template. Sorry, Maui's knocking on the door. Just follow that cut. I hope you could see that. You see how it's kind of more angled now? So again, we're just using this as a template. Makes your life easier, or makes our lives easier, because I actually enjoy making these because it really does help with my scrap cardstock stash and my pattern papers. All right, and same thing. I'm just gonna go towards the middle, back out. All right. Now we're done with all those tools. The next two tools you'll need is either a bone folder or like a paintbrush, something to curl your edges. And then I also have this tool, but you just really need a pencil or a paintbrush. So what I'm going to do is bring in all my pieces. And for what you're going to do is you're going to take all of your bow pieces, so these two longer pieces here. We're going to set aside the tails in the center. And you're going to just curl your pieces downward. So with this tool, you really just push this in and you squeeze it and curl it. Hope you guys can see. So you can see it's curled. And that's just to break the fibers so that way it's easier to kind of bend and maneuver. Especially if you're using thicker cardstock, you definitely want to break the fibers in your paper because then it won't crack and it'll make it a lot easier to form your bow. Alright, so now we have those done. We're going to go ahead and work on the centerpiece. With the centerpiece, you really just need to fold over one part of the paper. So I'm literally doing a hold on one side and just curl in one end. And I'm going to try to curl it in a little bit more. And that's because we're just going to be turning it into a circle. So you kind of want the flat end to be the part where you're going to adhere it. I hope that makes sense. Alright, and then for the tails, with the tails you're going to be going the opposite way. So we were going downwards, now you're going to go upwards. So if you're using pattern paper, it'll be easier to tell because you want the pattern papers to face up. And the tails are going to be going upwards. So, alright, so now all of our pieces are curled, as you guys can see. I don't know if you guys can tell, but we're going to go ahead and put the bow together now. Alright, you guys, so we're going to start with the bows first. It doesn't matter what part you're going to start with, if you start with the longer one or the shorter one, because they're both going to get adhered with each other anyway. But again, you just want to make sure that you are going to be adhering the two same pieces together. What I mean by that is the measurements that we used, just make sure the matching pieces are together, because you don't want one long one and one short one because it'll just look weird. So what we're going to do is the best way that I find at the center is I kind of form the bow or the little loops, and I just try to find the center like this. And I look from the top and I kind of see if these two match up. So it does look like the right one's a little bit longer. Alright, so yeah, it's probably the best it's gonna get. Again, you can mark it if you want. You can mark the center. But what I'm gonna do is, so what I like to do is have the two ends meet like this. I hold one end down, I lift this one up so I can keep my center point, and then I put hot glue. So I'm going to put hot glue right next to that piece. And adhere it down. And then I'm going to flip it and then lift this up, because now this part here is adhered, and I'm going to put glue now on this end, and adhere that down. And you're literally going to do that for each of those pieces. I'll go ahead and do another one with you to show you. And I'm on the other side of my desk, so my hot glue gun is on the left hand side, so it's kind of hard to reach. But yeah, so there's that piece. And it's okay if it's kind of flat here. We're going to be rounding it out later on. But we're going to go ahead and just do the other one here. Alright, so again, we're going to mold the two towards the center. I'm going to look from the top, kind of make sure they're lined up. And the reason why you kind of want it centered is because when you look at the bow from the side, you kind of want to make sure that these two kind of match at least, just a little bit. But yeah, so alright, I think that we're good here. So again, you're going to hold down the center piece here, lift one up here, and then we're going to use some glue hot glue. Just a very thin line. You really don't need that much. If you're not using hot glue and you're using just like wet adhesive, that's even better. I like hot glue because it dries faster, especially for this project since we're curling up pieces. I don't want the flap to be like moving up and down and having to hold it. And I apologize for the light change. I'm using the natural light. However, it is supposed to rain all week. It just hasn't come yet. Okay, so there's that piece. So we're gonna go ahead, and while I have these two pieces already done, I'm actually going to adhere these two together now. Or actually no, keep these two pieces together because I wanted to be able to show you guys all together. So we'll keep those there. Alright you guys, so now we have our two pieces done. They're pretty similar to each other, but you can see one is longer than the other. So the longer one's going to be at the bottom, and then these are going to be the tops. Again, I like to do everything together, so we're going to work on the center now. So again, remember we have one piece that is like kind of flat, and we're going to curl this in and meet at the bottom, just like this. So the flat part you're going to hold, this one, that part that we curled, we're going to curl in, and we're just going to hot glue that down. So I like to put the hot glue on the flat piece. That's why I leave it flat, is to make it a lot easier. And I feel like hot glue is the best for this. And you're just going to flatten it on there. I'm just going to roll it up a little bit. Alright. Alright, so there's the centerpiece, and then tails we don't have to worry about doing anything until the end. So now we're going to put the bow together. So we're going to start with the small piece, or the small bow. What you're going to do is you're going to actually create the bows and make just a plus sign with those pieces. I'm going to put these face down so that way these parts here are at the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and crisscross these pieces. And you're just going to add hot glue to the centers here. I'm going to place it. I'm actually going to put these together because then I'll cover it. Okay. So there's a plus sign. And then what I did was I actually took the two pieces, and the two pieces that are like where you can see the centers, I actually glued those together so that way the front and the back are clean. It doesn't really matter because they're really going to be covered, but I mean, again, it's still, not an extra step or anything. Alright, and then again, we're going to make that plus sign. Okay. So again, this is the bottom piece because it's longer. This is the shorter piece. And what we're going to do is we're going to make the smaller piece, or you can make the longer piece, whatever, but you have to offset these. So you have to make it like this. So you see, put them together like this, turn them, bam. So one is going to be a plus sign, the other one's going to be a multiplication sign. I usually like to make the top the multiplication sign. So I'm just going to go ahead and adhere it. And you can choose whatever side you want, depending on what pattern you like, because they're both clean. I'm just going to use this side. So I'm going to adhere this down. we're just gonna create that multiplication sign on top and just hold it down. And then when it comes to the tails, so again, this is a layered bow, so you want the layers to be kind of on an, how can I say? So because we have an X on the top, we have a plus sign at the bottom. You want to make the bottom part an X too. So with the tails, you're going to match the tails up with the top bow. So this here is going to get lined up with this top part right here. Does that make sense? You don't want to line it up with the bottom because that's just going to look too weird. You want it to be stacked up like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make a plus sign with this one as well. So just put some glue in the middle, attach this. It's a little off-centered, but it's okay. Actually, can I take it off? Okay, I was able to take it off. It was bothering me. Again, you can measure, but it's all good. Okay, so there's that piece, and then again, you're going to line up the top bow. Sorry for flicking you off. You're going to use the top bow here and line it up with the bottom. And we're going to glue it down like that. So we're going to put the hot glue. I put a lot at the bottom because it's holding everything together. And we're just going to line that up. So you can see it's coming together. All that we need is the centerpiece. So for that, we're going to glue that down. And I'm going to glue it so if you are doing the cardstock and pattern paper way, you can see that this kind of lines up with that. I'm actually going to swap it and line it up with this one here. That's only if you're doing the pattern paper. Other than that, it doesn't matter. So I'm gonna put hot glue. I'm gonna put a good amount. You don't have to use the center. You can actually use a rhinestone, which I have done for one of the bows, which I will show you. And I'm gonna kind of flatten it out so you can see. Because again, like I said, you want it to be like stacked up on each other. So you kind of want it to be opposite from each other, each layer, because you want it to look, I don't know, not cohesive, I guess. So what I'm going to do now is, this is where this tool comes in. You can use a paintbrush or anything. This fits in here sometimes, which it doesn't this time. I'm literally just going to use my awl tool, and I'm just going to use it to round it a little bit. This one can kind of be flat, but here, these will fit. And I just use this tool to literally go inside of each bow to puff it up. And you can get these tools at Tuesday Morning if you guys have one. You can probably get it online too. They're by We Are Memory Keepers. And while I'm curling it, I'm kind of pushing it towards the center to help it. We're also going to do the bottom. So Chris just likes to purposely get into the videos and he just can't let me finish a video without interrupting. He just came home from the gym and then he's cooking And then he has to get ready for work and has to bug me. Okay. Alright, so you can see it's a lot more plump now, because look at it. So that's how that looks. And I'll show you the one that has the rhinestone in the middle. Here. So this one is just plain cardstock, has a rhinestone in the middle. I also didn't make the bottom part bigger on this one. This was also a prototype. This was after I realized I didn't need to make separate pieces for each one of these. And then I ended up just like making one piece per, like, I guess corner. But yeah, that's how that looks. Alright you guys, so here is that bow. And then I'll show you guys the variation. So this is the one with patterned paper. This is the one with just patterned paper. This one is without patterned paper. And this one is a vellum bow with patterned paper. So there are the variations of the bows. This is the one that we made today. Kind of love how this one turned out. I kind of just picked random papers, but yeah. So that's how that one looks. I will have pictures on my Instagram if you guys are interested. That'll be linked down below. And also if you guys don't have the notification button already clicked on, I think it's like the bell next to my subscribe button. That'll tell you when I do post videos. So again, if you want to see more pictures, just click on the link down below for my Instagram, and I will talk to you guys in my next video. You guys have a great day, whatever day it is that you guys are watching this. Bye.